In the middle of the wedding ceremony, the groom abandons his wheelchair-bound bride, making her a laughingstock in front of everyone. Suddenly, a man appears, whose name is spoken in hushed tones throughout the city, and takes the girl straight from the church. In his house, she encounters secrets from the past that change everything she knew about herself and her life. When the Shadow War begins, she makes a choice that will forever change her destiny, and the destiny of the most dangerous man in the city. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. The church was unnaturally silent. The massive stained glass windows cast colored reflections on the floor, which slid across the white fabric of the dress that lay around the wheelchair, like a faded promise. Grace Whitaker couldn't breathe. The air had become thick as honey, as if the church itself was trying to hold back the inevitable. "I can't," said Ethan, her fiancé, his voice hoarse as if he were fighting with himself. "I can't marry someone like her." The words rang out in the silence like a bell ringing over an open grave. Tears streamed down Grace's face. Some of the guests gasped. Some turned away. The rest watched, transfixed by the catastrophe, like an audience in a Roman arena. Ethan wasn't looking at her anymore. He stepped back from the carriage as if he was afraid that touching her would infect him with something shameful. He took the ring off his ring finger, making no attempt to hide the way his hands were shaking, and placed it on the edge of the altar. "You knew," Grace whispered, her voice cracking with pain. "You knew from the start. You said it didn't matter." "I was wrong," he answered shortly. "I thought I could handle it. But I'm not ready to spend my life with someone who's so dependent." Each word was like a hammer hitting glass, and the world around her began to crumble. From the depths of the room came a noise. Footsteps, confident, booming, breaking the sacred silence. Grace looked up. The doors swung open. The light from outside cut out the silhouette of a tall man, as if the sun itself had submitted to his presence. He walked into the church with stately deliberation. His black suit fit him perfectly. Behind him were two men, one with a scarred face, the other with a cold gaze. The guests began to whisper. Someone breathed out a name like a curse. "This is Vincent Devereaux." The name made Ethan pale. He took a step back, tripping over his own dignity. "Mr. Devereaux," he said in a breaking voice, "I'm sorry, but I don't understand why you're here." Vincent didn't pay him the slightest attention. His dark eyes were fixed only on Grace. There was no malice in them, no softness either, only silent determination. He approached the altar. He froze in front of her. His figure blocked everything from her view. The stained glass windows, the guests, the pain. "Have we met?" she whispered, hardly believing that this man from the headlines, the killer, the mafioso, the king of shadows, was standing before her looking almost human. He knelt down to be level with her. On closer inspection, she saw a thin scar along his jaw and eyes that reflected the cruelty of the world. But underneath, a strange, almost forgotten warmth. "No," he said quietly. "We haven't met." "Then, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. He picked her up in his arms. He did it so easily, as if she weighed nothing. "Put me down," she began, grabbing his jacket. "Please." He turned and walked away from the altar, from the guests, from all this farce. The church was behind him. The dreams had died there. No one blocked his way. No one even dared to cry out. "My stroller," Grace breathed out, turning around. "Nicholas," Vincent said. The senior bodyguard was already carefully folding the chair, as if he was protecting something sacred. A black limousine with tinted windows was waiting at the entrance. Vincent put her inside, as if they were in an old fairy tale where the prince takes the bride away. Only this prince smelled of menace, not roses. "Please," she tried again. "You're wrong. I don't know you. I shouldn't be here." He sat down next to her, moving away a little, but not losing his vigilance. "It's not a mistake," he said calmly. The salon was filled with silence. Only the noise of the streets outside the window reminded that somewhere outside, ordinary life continued. Vincent was silent. The man with cold eyes watched the road. The second sat opposite, tense, as if expecting an attack even from the air. Grace peered into the face of the man next to her, trying to find some kind of explanation. "You called me by name in church. How do you know me?" "I know a lot," he replied. "That's not an answer." The corner of his lips twitched, almost in a smile. You're brave. That's good. You'll need it. For what? Her voice trembled, but her eyes did not look away. He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a handkerchief with the initials VD embroidered on it from his pocket and silently handed it to her. She took it almost automatically, feeling the soft fabric and the absurd care. Thank you, she squeezed out, wiping her face. Her fingers were shaking. The limousine drove out of town, disappearing between the pines and hills. The roads serpentine up into the woods, where the city lights couldn't reach. The higher they climbed, the heavier it became. Please, she tried again. I have no family. No one will pay the ransom. I have no money. You are wasting your time. It's not about money, Vincent replied, looking ahead. Then, why? He looked at her, and for a moment there was a flash of pain in his eyes. For security reasons. He didn't say another word. Grace was speechless when the gates of the mansion swung open before them. This was not just a home, it was a castle surrounded by walls and guards. Gothic architecture, floor-to-ceiling windows, stone arches, and endless shadows. He picked her up again without asking permission. The house was silent, as if the air itself revered this man. At the back of the hall, they were met by a woman with silver hair and an icy posture. Sophia, Vincent said. This is Grace. She's staying with us. Prepare the east wing. Grace closed her eyes. What? No, I'm not staying here. You can't just... I can, he snapped. This is kidnapping. This is protection. From what? From whom? Her voice trembled with rage and fear. The only danger I face today is you. A flash of emotion crossed his face, but he became stony again. You don't know what danger is, Grace, but you're safe here. And he was gone, leaving her in the darkening room with a woman whose sternness seemed impenetrable. But even in Sophia's voice, as she came up and put her hand on Grace's shoulder, there was something human. Come, child, she said softly. We must take off this dress and give you some real food. Everything always becomes clearer after eating. Grace looked at the carriage standing nearby, then at the unfamiliar walls, paintings, stairs. Everything that was familiar to her was left behind the doors of that church. A new story began here. Strange, incomprehensible, but already irreversible. Grace woke to a silence too thick to be accidental. The pale light of dawn was just filtering through the heavy velvet curtains, and the room she was in seemed part of a dream. A big, complicated, expensive dream. The walls were covered in deep wine-colored fabric. The ceiling was carved with beams, the soft smell of wood and wax, and something warm, like a fireplace hovering in the air. Everything was strange and eerily still. She lay on the bed, wide, too soft, with pillows that seemed to hug her shoulders. Yesterday flashed through her mind like a flash of pain. The church, Ethan, his disgust, Vincent, that strange, frightening, silent man, his hands. And here she was, a prisoner, a guest, a victim. The door opened quietly and Sophia entered. She looked different today. Her hair was braided into a smooth plait, the black dress had been replaced by a strict gray-blue suit, and she was holding a tray with breakfast. In her eyes there was still the same cold intelligence, but her voice had become softer. Good morning, Miss Grace, she said, setting the tray on the coffee table. Mr. Devereaux asked me to tell you he'll be expecting you later. He's ordered some clothes, she pointed to the hanger, and if anything doesn't fit, we'll replace it. Grace sat up, throwing back the covers. The silk pajamas, also probably chosen by Vincent, were comfortable and oddly fitting. She looked at the clothes. Elegant trousers without unnecessary seams, a soft sweater, flat shoes with delicate embroidery. He guessed my size, she said quietly. He has a knack for noticing things that others miss, Sophia responded. But why? Grace's voice broke. Why all this? The house, the security, the attention? Did he fall in love with the one who was left at the altar? Sophia didn't answer right away. She carefully adjusted the pillow behind Grace's back and only then said, I don't think it's about love, at least not in the way you think. It's something deeper. I've worked for Mr. Devereaux for 10 years. I've seen him punish. I've seen him protect. I've seen him keep quiet. But never the way he looks at you. Grace gripped the arm of the chair that was already by the bed, open and ready, as if it were part of her. She moved without haste, without any help. Sophia hadn't offered it, and that was unexpectedly comforting. The house beyond the bedroom was no less majestic. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, a grand piano in the far corner of the living room, old master paintings, and the distant sound of birds singing from the inner garden. The air smelled of cinnamon and lavender, and every room seemed to hold whispers of the past. Sophia led her through the corridors, pointing to the doors. This is the library. There is a winter garden. Here is the dining room. All the passages are stepless. Mr. Devereaux provided for this. When? Grace asked, stopping. When did he have time to prepare all this? Sophia turned to her. There was neither surprise nor a smile in her voice. These rooms have been like this from the very beginning. This house has always been waiting for someone who can't climb the stairs. Grace's heart sank. What do you mean by this? That he was waiting for you. Later, in a small salon where the walls were covered with photographs of old New York and the air smelled of fresh lemon, Vincent appeared. He walked in unannounced, like a man who didn't need permission. He was wearing a simple white sweater, the sleeves rolled up, his hair slightly damp, as if he had just showered. But even in this casual attire, he exuded danger. She felt it instinctively. You're awake, he said, and there was not authority in his voice, but something else. Relief, perhaps? I wasn't sleeping, she said. Not here. Not after you dragged me out of the church like I was. I don't know. A gift you forgot to give. He sat down opposite. There was a table with a carafe of water between them, but the distance seemed greater. It wasn't a ceremony, he said. It was a humiliation. I couldn't watch you sit there alone, surrounded by people who didn't even bother to stand up. That didn't give you the right. Maybe it didn't, but I don't regret it, he interrupted. You shouldn't have stayed in that church, or gone back to that apartment, or lived another day believing you were alone. She was silent. Vincent took his time, as if he knew that her silence was not a refusal, but a struggle. You called me by my name, she whispered, before I introduced myself. How did you know? He froze, a shadow passed over his face. You don't remember? Remember what? He leaned back in his chair. The orphanage, St. Joseph's, stone walls, cold soup and prayers before dinner. You were there, so was I. Grace felt like she was in icy water. Images flashed through her mind. Gray hallways, creaking floorboards, a girl with pigtails in a chair, a boy carrying her up the stairs because no one else cared. It's you? I was there, always close, protecting while I could. And then I disappeared. She covered her face with her hands. Too many emotions, memories, pain. Why did you leave? Why did you leave? Because otherwise they would have taken you away. Grace looked up. What? Aprunman, the director of the orphanage, he sold boys. To gangs. To the dirt. I was tough. I was angry. I was 14. I was chosen. I said no. I said I had to stay with you. Then he offered another deal. Either I leave or others take you. Much worse. Tears came to my eyes again. And you? Left? So that you stay. So that no one touches you. I made a condition. I promised to come back and burn this shelter if even one hair falls from your head. He spoke calmly, without bitterness. But there was steel in his voice. Grace wiped her cheeks. Why didn't you tell me then? Why didn't you say goodbye? Because I knew that if I told you, you would ask me to stay. And I couldn't say no. So I disappeared. So you could forget. I forgot. Almost. But I am not. She sat in silence, feeling the past fill every crack inside her. Everything she thought of as her life was built on his invisible protection. An apartment, she whispered. A job? A stipend? My job. My people. I watched. From afar. Why did you come now? He was silent for a long time. Because yesterday you cried, and I promised myself that if I ever see you like this, I won't let it happen again. She closed her eyes. In this silence, in this strange house with this terrible man, it suddenly became a little warmer. So what now? She asked. What am I to you? He didn't answer right away. He stood up, came closer, and knelt down, like in that church. Everything, You are everything, and I will not allow anyone to take away your strength, your dignity, or your future. And Grace suddenly realized that for the first time in many years, she didn't want to run. The house, which had seemed like a stone shadow in the first days, became something strange for Grace, a place where the silence did not oppress, but allowed her to think. The morning light glided softly over the wooden panels of the halls, over the mosaic floors, over the glass of the antique lamps. The air smelled of coffee, warm bread, and something she could not quite name, perhaps safety. Although this feeling was not yet fully trusted in her, she sat in the library surrounded by shelves that went all the way to the ceiling. The books were old, with leather spines, gold embossing, with the smell of time. In front of her was an open book, but she was not reading. Her thoughts were not giving her any. Ever since Vincent told her about the shelter, about the threat that once hung over her life, her reality had expanded. Everything she considered hers, the scholarship, the nice apartment, the job, turned out to be traces of his invisible care. It angered her. It touched her. It scared her. "You're not eating," said a voice behind me. She turned around. Vincent was standing in the doorway, leaning against the jamb, his shirt rolled up to his elbows. An old watch face glowed on his wrist, the glass slightly scratched. "I have no appetite," she said quietly. "So you think so?" He came closer and sat down opposite. Between them was a table set with breakfast. Sliced cheese, croissants, honey, a cup of tea, steam rising above it like a cloud. "Why did you do this?" Grace asked, not touching the cup. "Why did you help me all these years without letting me know?" "Because I promised. To you, to myself, to the boy I was. Or maybe it's because you don't know how to let go." Her voice took on a sharp edge. "You control this life like pieces on a board. Do you think that's what caring is?" Vincent was not offended. He looked at her calmly. "I really can't let go," he said. "Especially something I once held in my arms and didn't want to let go of. It's manipulation, Vincent. What you're doing. Building my life so you can put me back into it as if I belong. I didn't expect anything. You were supposed to be free. I just wanted to be there if trouble ever happened. And then it happened, and you came out of the shadows." He nodded. "I left because I couldn't watch you cry anymore." They were silent. Somewhere in another wing of the house, a clock struck 10. The thin chime echoed through the corridors like an echo of another era. "What now?" she finally asked. "What do you want from me?" He exhaled slowly. "Right now, I want you to feel safe. Here, with me, not as a debtor, not as a prisoner, as a person who has the right to peace. What if I want to leave? Then I'll take you myself. To any place. Any." She looked closely at his face. Vincent was tired. His eyes were slightly shadowed under the lids. His cheek had a thin cut, a reminder of a world where kindness rarely went unpunished. "I don't know what I feel," she admitted. "Yesterday you were a shadow from the past. Today you're a fortress. Tomorrow you might be someone else. I can't trust a world that's had everything set up for me." "Then trust yourself. You're not here because I wanted you to be, but because you're still fighting, because you haven't given up, because you asked me these questions." Grace closed her eyes. The warmth from the mug beneath her palm was finally beginning to seep into her fingers. She took a sip. It was bergamot tea, the same one she had had at university. "Even my tea," she whispered. He didn't answer. He just looked. The day passed slowly. Grace explored the house, watched but not guarded. She passed the living room where bodyguards played chess, the kitchen where the cook hummed as he baked something aromatic, and the windows that looked out onto the pond, frozen with thin ice that caught the sun's reflections. In the gallery behind glass, she saw photographs. Simple frames, not paintings, children's faces, gray walls in the background, an orphanage. In one of the photos, there's a girl with pigtails and a boy with a frown standing behind her, his hand on her shoulder. She and him, where it all began. "You weren't supposed to see that," Vincent said, standing in the doorway. She turned around, clutching the photograph to her chest. "Why did you hide it?" He came up, took the photo from her hands, and carefully returned it to its place. "Because you forgot. And I wanted you to live on, without this burden." "And you, me, No. He ran his finger along the glass, as if touching the past. Grace saw his hand tremble. You have a photo of me sleeping in a chair and you sitting next to me, like a security guard. I was a security guard. I still am. And you think that this is enough? He fell silent. Tell me everything, she said. Everything that happened after. He took her into the office. There was a box. He opened it. A small wooden bird, hand-carved, a hair ribbon, a notebook sheet with a child's handwriting, a bracelet made of thread. I did this? Grace's voice wavered. For my birthday. You said it would bring me luck. Did you bring it? He smiled. For real. He helped me remember who I was, even when everything around me tried to break me. And now I remember again. She sat down opposite, hugging her knees with her hands. I'm scared, because you've become someone to be afraid of. Someone who can command, kill, destroy. But you still keep my bracelet. He looked at her. You said that I am a fortress. Maybe. But every stone in this fortress is so that one day you can breathe here. The silence in the office became almost holy. No cars, no threat. Just the two of them. The past, the present, and the question, what will happen next? I'm not leaving, Grace said. Not until I figure out what kind of person you are. Not until I decide if it's worth staying. He nodded. Stay, Chihiru, but not because you want to, but because I choose. Then I'll wait, and I'll keep quiet. No, she said. Talk. About yourself. About who you've become. And then, maybe I'll want to stay not as a debtor, but as someone who knows who she loves. Vincent closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he simply sighed. Not like the head of a criminal empire, but like a boy standing by the window, waiting for the girl in the chair to return. The day began with the smell of smoke. Grace didn't immediately understand what had woken her up. Either the slight smell of burning that had slipped through the crack under the door, or Sophia's sharp voice in the hallway, or the sudden silence outside the window, too dense for an ordinary morning. The room, which had seemed almost familiar over the weeks, greeted her in semi-darkness. The curtains were tightly drawn, the lamps were not turned on, and the air was heavy and wary. The knock on the door was short. Miss Whitaker, Sophia's voice said, you must get dressed, now. What's happened? Don't ask questions, just trust. Grace quickly changed into pants, a comfortable turtleneck, sneakers, and her hair in a ponytail. Sophia walked in uninvited, her eyes stern, her lips pressed into a thin line. Let's go. We'll go down to a safe level. Is this an attack? Grace asked, rolling out of the bedroom. It's a threat, Sophia said, and threats are not ignored in Mr. Devereaux's house. There was a sense of subdued panic in the corridors. The guards moved quickly, silently exchanging glances. Someone was transmitting messages over the radio. One of them, a young man with dark eyes, ran past with a machine gun in his hands. This was not just a glitch. Something had happened. Where's Vincent? She asked as Sophia entered the code into a panel on one of the walls. In the command room. He himself gave the order to transfer you to the protective zone. The wall slid aside, revealing an elevator. The ride down only took a few seconds, but Grace felt like she was descending into another world. The room they found themselves in was like a capsule. Solid walls, reinforced doors, air filtration systems, screens with cameras, food and water supplies. Everything was thought out. Everything in advance. He was preparing for this, Grace whispered. He's always preparing, Sophia said. That's why he's still alive. On one of the screens is a picture from a camera on the east side of the mansion. Masked men armed. The noise of gunshots, audible even through the concrete. Are they inside already? Not yet, but they are close. Grace watched the screen and felt something awaken inside her. Not fear, no. Something else was burning inside her. Rage. Her life was once again a toy in someone else's hands. Only now she knew she could defend herself. Give me the radio, she said. Sophia was surprised. What are you going to do? I'm not just going to sit here. I want to know what's going on. Sophia silently handed her the device. A few seconds later, Vincent's voice came over the speaker. Perimeter held. West line clear. Nicholas, take 3 men and check the tunnel. Vincent, she said, pressing the button. This is Grace. A short pause, then. Are you downstairs? Yes, but I'm not going to stay here if you... You will stay. This is not up for discussion. Listen to me, she cried. If this is the man you spoke of, if this is the one who knows about us... He knows, Vincent said quietly. He knew before it started. It's Castillo. He's playing it straight. Then you won't win if you do everything as usual. He expects you to hide me, that I'm a weakness, and I'm not a weakness. He remained silent. You taught me yourself, Vincent, not to be afraid, not to be silent. So let me be a part of this. Not a shadow, not a burden, but a participant. It's dangerous. Living is dangerous in general. The voice on the radio went silent. Then, we have a change of plan. Sophia, activate protocol light. Grace, you go out to the library. Stay in sight. This will be bait. Sophia raised her eyebrows. Antoninum, are you sure, Mr. Devereaux? It's her choice. It took an hour to get ready. The curtains in the library were opened, and a chair was positioned so that it could be seen from outside. Grace sat up straight, her hair done, her face lightly made up. She looked calm, as if she was just reading, as if there were no gunshots or fear around her. If they break through, Sophia began, then I'll use the button. There was a system built into the armrest of the chair. Press it and the gas would go off, the doors would lock, and the security would connect to the auto system. Grace had learned everything, memorized it. Vincent appeared at the door. He was wearing a black jacket with a gun on his belt. His face was focused, but there was something in his eyes when he looked at her. Everything is ready, she said. I'm proud of you, he replied quietly. If you only knew how much. I don't want to be your shadow, Vincent. I want to be your mirror. He came up and carefully touched her palm. I'll be back, quickly. Come back alive. He left. The library was quiet. Time flowed slowly like drops of water on glass. Grace looked out the window and felt her heart beating steadily, confidently. She was not a scared girl in an orphanage, nor was she an abandoned bride. She was a woman who knew what it was like to be part of a war. When the door swung open, too abruptly, too quietly, she knew they had arrived. Two, in black, without signs, with weapons. There you are, said one. Vincent's little treasure. Grace watched silently. Castillo wants you alive. For now. One of them came up, reached for her. She pressed the button. The gas hit instantly. The men recoiled and began coughing. One fell. The other blindly tried to feel his way back. 30 seconds later, silence. Signal in the radio. The object has been neutralized, she reported. Vincent's answer was short. Great, I'm coming to you. And the moment he actually walked in, dusty, with a scratch on his cheek, a gun in his hand, she felt for the first time that she could be with him. Not because he was protecting her, but because they were together. Are you hurt? He asked, approaching. No, just a little tired. Then rest. We won. And he? Castillo? Vincent looked down. Not yet, but soon. We are closer than ever. She extended her hand to him. He took it, firmly, carefully. I'm with you, she said. To the end. He nodded. Until the end. But maybe with the beginning of something more. The night passed with alarming silence. The mansion seemed to exhale after the storm. The walls breathed heavily. The windows bore traces of shattered glass. The air was filled with the smell of burning, gun oil, and something almost elusive sweet, as if the house itself had let go of a long, musty memory. But the morning brought light, soft, not blinding, like a palm placed on the heart. For the first time in a long time, everything was truly calm. Grace sat on the east wing balcony, wrapped in a warm blanket. The garden stretched out before her, wounded with broken bushes, with a scorched spot where the gazebo had caught fire the night before, but alive. Nature knew how to regenerate. She looked at it and felt her own inner soil regenerating. The footsteps behind her did not surprise her. She already recognized Vincent's gait, confident but not oppressive, almost affectionate as he approached her. He came up, sat down next to her, and for a few moments they were silent, listening to the wind rustling the remaining leaves. I thought you would be sleeping, she said quietly. I can't sleep when everything is finally good, he replied with a shadow of a smile. It seems that the habit of waiting for a shot in silence remains forever. Is he dead? Yes, personally, without intermediaries. He did not look at her. His eyes were directed into the distance. The last time we stood opposite each other, he called me a boy with dirty hands and illusions. And this time, a man who was able to protect her. And what did you tell him? Nothing. Sometimes silence is the best sentence. Grace placed her hand on his arm. He didn't pull away. And now? What will happen to the house, to this world you built? He turned slowly towards her. I don't know. I didn't have an after plan. Everything I did was meant to make sure you were safe one day. And now it's different. She smiled, quietly, a little sadly. You know, I thought a lot in those moments when I sat in the library, knowing that behind the door was death. And I didn't feel like a victim. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was part of something big, that my weakness wasn't in my body, but in my fear. And if there was no fear, then I was stronger than I seemed. He leaned slightly towards her. You've always been strong. It's just that now you've allowed yourself to admit it. They fell silent. Somewhere in the garden, a squirrel began to chatter, jumping from branch to branch. A leaf fell with a thin rustle, as if closing a page. I want to stay, she said suddenly, not as a prisoner, not as a temporary guest. I want to be here with you, but not behind your back, not under your shield. I want to be close. He looked at her for a long time, as if trying to make sure that he was hearing not the fruit of his desire, but reality. It won't be easy. I won't become a different person, Grace. I have blood on my hands. I have dozens of decisions behind me that I can't justify. And I have dozens of days when I looked in the mirror and saw no one except a girl in a wheelchair who has no right to happiness. But I want to live, not on the sidelines. Not according to someone else's scenario, but my own life, even if it is in danger, if it is with you. He took her hand carefully, like a fragile object that you are afraid of breaking. Then stay, not as part of the past, but as part of everything. 3 weeks have passed. The house was filled with new voices. Security had been strengthened, but without ostentatious aggression. Vincent had changed his team. Now he had people who could not only shoot, but also listen. The lamps in the offices were lit again. The dust was being wiped off the stairs, and the burnt parts of the mansion were already being restored. But most importantly, the air itself had changed. There was less anxiety and more anticipation in it. One morning, Grace was awakened by noise on the ground floor. She went downstairs to find a scene that would stick in her memory. Vincent standing among cardboard boxes, smiling, dust on his forehead, giving orders. Nearby, women in business suits discussing documents, architects unrolling plans. He was building something new. What's going on here? She asked, moving closer. We are opening a charity fund. In your name. She froze. What? A support center for children with disabilities. Those who have lost their parents. Those who need not only medicine, but also a chance. A home where they don't trade destinies. Where they give a start. She was silent. And then she said quietly, do you really want to change everything? He walked up to her, stood in front of her, and dropped to one knee, just like that first meeting in church. I'm not a saint, Grace. I never will be. But I can make the world you live in a little cleaner. You showed me that light is possible, even in my hands. Then let me be there. And in this. 2 months later, they were standing in the greenhouse. She was wearing a cream dress without a train, with cranes embroidered on the hem. He was wearing black, without a tie. Only the closest people were around. Sophia smiled reservedly. Nicholas stood leaning on the back of the chair, where his little daughter was now sitting. No falsehood, no pathos. Only honest air and words spoken with an open heart. I don't want to promise you a perfect life, Vincent said, because I don't know what that is. But I promise to fight for one where you smile more often than you cry, where you don't feel alone, where you are a part of me, not as a survivor, but as an equal. I don't want to be your weakness, Grace said, and I won't be. But if you ever fall, I'll be the one to pick you up. I won't fight your demons, but I'll be there to make sure you remember why you survived. And when they kissed under a glass dome with the sun shining through the leaves, among the grass, the scent of jasmine and the laughter of children, it became clear. Sometimes the darkest paths lead to the light, only if you have the courage to walk not alone. And the house behind them was no longer a fortress, it became a home.